No.
I love it.
My fashion is pretty simple. Not a tough choice every day. I know that much.
Yeah, you can't come with the bright red uniform.
No.
My knee. I'm like, oh, why did I? Yeah, it was.
We have sound? Oh, yeah, we do now. Good evening. Welcome to Tulare County Voices at 210. We are at 210, uh, which is Visalia's living room, one of our favorite places in all of Visalia and in downtown. Um, Tulare County Voices at 210 is a monthly forum that is dedicated to a discussion of, an examination of issues and topics of interest to the community. And we've done all kinds of things. We have what I think is a special one tonight, a little different, kind of strictly informational. No controversies allowed here. If any controversies show up to the door, don't let them in. I think we've had enough of them this week, don't you? Um, Tulare County Voices at 210 is co-sponsored by the Visalia Times Delta and First Presbyterian Church, which owns this building, and to whom we are, yeah, how about that, huh? Yeah. And to whom we are eternally grateful for the use of this building on the second Tuesday of, um, of each month. Ask me about that later because it will change soon because things do change. Another thing we found out this week. Um, yeah, I know. I can't let it go, huh? Yeah. We are very grateful and appreciative of First Presbyterian Church and its congregation for the use of this space each month. And to welcome you and to give his blessing to this gathering, it's my pleasure to introduce the pastor of First Presbyterian Church, Pastor Dan Birchfield. Pastor Dan.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. And it is First Presbyterian Church's pleasure to open up the 210 building for these discussions that you all are going to have tonight. And we are so interested in finding out more about the new Civic Center ideas and plans. And so thank you for being here. I just want to make a quick announcement. I know a lot of you have probably already heard that the cafe operations for 210 will be closing officially on Wednesday, November 27th. We are heartbroken about having to make that decision as a church, but we needed to make the decision for a cost savings plan for our church. And the coffee business is a tough business. And people that have been in it know that. And we had a great run since April 15th, 2008. But I want to make it clear, 210, the building that's created for events like Tulare County Voices at 210 and a host of other things that happen here on a regular basis, those things will be continuing on. The building's not going away, and as Paul said, we own the building, so we are very, very excited about what new possibilities it brings for how this space can be utilized, whether it's for mission, ministry, or for the community's benefit and welfare. We are here for that. Yeah, and fun. That's right, fun. If people have ideas of wanting to use this space for performances and things like that, feel free to do that. But I want to end by saying I hope that you'll come by as frequently as you can for the last several weeks of the 210 Cafe, and especially on Saturday, the 23rd of November, from 7 a.m. till 1 p.m. We'll be open as usual, but there's going to be, if you will, an amped up cup of jazz that Saturday. We're going to honor present staff, former staff, and our volunteer leadership teams that have been so supportive of this cafe. And we're going to have cake, and that's a reason to come too. So anyways, but we hope you'll come by on the 23rd especially, just to let these baristas know who have worked so hard that they have had an impact on the community. And so with that, enjoy tonight's presentation.
Thank you very much, Pastor Dan. Don't go too far. We are keen on audience participation here at Tulare County Voices at 210, including, questions from the audience. So before Pastor Dan sneaks away, does anybody have any questions for him now? Real short ones. Good. That's the way we want it. Because Dan, next month for our Tulare County Voices at 210 program, will explain in a lot more detail what's going on with the future of 210, the process of closing the cafe, which will have been closed by then, actually, and the congregation's vision for the future for this space, which I am assured will include Tulare County Voices at 210, thank goodness. So he will talk a little bit more about that, and that will be a special night, by the way. Let me tell you about right away what our program is for December 10. As usual, for our December program, we provide what we like to think of as a Christmas card to Visalia. Visalia historian Terry Oman will be here for our program on December 10th. Check that date. Did I got it right, Melinda? Yeah? Got it right? December 10th. And his subject that evening will be the Butterfield Overland Stage, which, if anybody is familiar even a little bit with that, know that it was kind of instrumental in development of Visalia and the Central Valley in the middle of the 19th century, 1850. What do you say? 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 60. Anyway, we got a taste of it with a meeting with Terry a couple of weeks ago, and it's going to be a terrific program. So be sure to be here for that and to hear more about the future of 210. Okay, but tonight we are here to talk about a very important development for our community, and that is the building of a, you know what I'm going to do before I get to that, because I always forget until the very end, because somebody doesn't remind me. I want to introduce the other members of our planning team who help us put together these programs month to month, year after year. I don't know how many years we've been doing this, too many, since actually 210 started. but they are here this evening. If you could just stand up when I call your name. If I don't call your name, stand up anyway. Yeah, just shout out and remind me. All right, Melinda Morales, the one with the loud voice there, was first. And have you got a mic back there, by the way? You got a mic? Okay. Donna Kinshu is next to her. Moving forward, yeah, applause is appropriate. Yeah, that's true. They didn't stand up. I know. We're going to have to, there'll be demerits. There will be demerits to that. Donna Kinshu. Lou Griswold is with us. The Valley's preeminent journalist. Miley Melkonian is in the front row, and next to her is Catherine Doe. And who'd I miss? Nobody right now. Lisa Alvarado is often with us, but she's not here tonight. So, all right, our topic for tonight is Visalia's new Civic Center. Some of you know a lot about it. Some of you know a little about it. I don't know that much about it, and I thought this would be a good time to just have an informational gathering, to have the people, folks from the city, to talk about the new Civic Center and all the nuts and bolts, how much it costs, where it's going to be, what's going to be used for, and how you can get involved. To guide us through that is Visalia City Council member who just concluded a successful campaign for re-election, the Honorable Brett Taylor. Wave your hand or stand up. Yeah, there you go. So we know who you are. Can you introduce the other guy?
So I'd like to introduce our Chief of Police, Jason Salazar. He's been with the city for over 30 years now. Just a remarkable individual, and a lot of this project is because of his hard work and the city staff. So Jason Salazar.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening and talk about this. You're probably sick of talking about it already because I'm sure you've done a lot of it so far. But there's still a lot of us that would like to get a few more details about the new Civic Center. So, Brett, I heard a presentation from you a couple of months ago about this, so
Okay.
I know that we can start with you because you're articulate on the subject.
Perfect. So first off, does everybody have this flyer that's going around? Okay, it looks like someone's passing it around, so that's fantastic. So we're excited to be here tonight to talk about our Civic Center. And for me, when I talk to people about this, one of the first things that they always ask is how much is it going to cost, and why do we need a Civic Center? And so I'll go over that first. So there actually is just a slight error in here. If you look on the back page, it says the cost is going to be $85 million. And when I first started on City Council, the project was actually slated to be $70 million. And like all projects do, especially after COVID, materials got more expensive, labor got more expensive, just everything around building got more expensive. And so that cost pretty quickly ballooned to over $100 million. And then when the council started looking at it, we wanted to make sure that this just wasn't a regular building. Because if you guys see the picture down here, I mean, this is going to be a remarkable building for our community. It's really going to be a place where people are going to be excited to go, where people can hold parties, quinceañeras, weddings. I mean, I think people will be excited to go to City Hall to pay their bills. I mean, it's going to be such a cool looking building. So when it first came out,
that's some building.
Yeah, when it first came out, it just kind of looked a little odd. It was a civic center with a council chamber. There was going to be evidence and police chambers, and it just seemed like almost like a high school campus with just kind of buildings everywhere. And when the council was looking at it, and we were working with the architects and engineers, we just said, you know, it doesn't feel like community, right? It just looks like just a bunch of buildings. And so they had one of the engineers and architects had a great idea of really creating an outdoor pavilion, which is connecting all these buildings together. And on top of that, they talked about the idea of being able to have, you know, all the shaded structure underneath with speakers inside of it, so we can hold farmers markets. So we can hold weddings, we can hold different events, carnivals, fairs, and really make it a place for our community. And so we added that, and that's when it really changed the look to what you guys see here, which is something just absolutely gorgeous. On top of that, when we were looking at kind of making some of the final touches, I worked for the Tulare County Association of Realtors. Prior to that, I was a real estate agent, and prior to that, I was an appraiser. And 99% of the time, a home is a home, right? It's 4 walls. But what's the difference between a really expensive home and an entry-level home? It's what you add to it. And so when we were looking at this, we wanted to make sure that this was a building, that was really second to none in the city. We've all gone to beautiful cities that have some historic buildings. And they're gorgeous because of the handwork railing, because of the cement work, the hand-carved, stone, the artwork inside of it. And so when we were kind of putting the final touches on this building, we really put an emphasis on making things just pop. We didn't just want regular, railing. We wanted railing with beautiful artwork inside of it. We didn't just want like regular, walls. We wanted walls that had, texture to them. And so even the tile, we didn't want just plain tile. We wanted tile that had artwork inside of it. And so even the lighting, we talked about the lighting, about, a building is beautiful, but in the evening, when you light up a building, it becomes, spectacular. And so we added a lot of those features, and obviously with that added additional expenses. So as of right now, the project's sitting somewhere around $110 to $120 million for this whole project. But the second thing that I love telling people is this is not a project that this current council started working on. This was a project that started about 30 years ago, maybe even longer. And the councils from 30 plus years ago started saving money. So we have all the money for this project. It's not a project that we're going to be raising anyone's taxes for. It's not a project that we're going to go out and get bonds for. We have this money sitting in the bank that we've been saving for 30 years. So Visalia has historically been really good about using your sacred money and not just getting in debt for no reason. And so this is something that many councils, I couldn't even imagine how many people have served on council over the last 30 years who've stayed true and dedicated to this plan. And so I'm just kind of lucky enough to actually be on council when it's kind of really going to put the shovel in the ground on the first project.
Does that cue me, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely.
30, 40, your lead says 50. The city has been planning. So when did they start putting that money away? I heard a figure of 1986. I don't know if that is true or not.
At least we've been told that, at least 30 years. Jason, when you started, I'm sure they were already talking about this when you started. So.
Yeah, well, good evening, everyone. So, yeah, I don't know exactly when they started putting money away for it, but a lot of it's being funded through what we call the Civic Center Reserve and Civic Center Impact Fees, and those have been around for at least 30 years or so. But I know they were talking about a new headquarters, new city hall in the late 70s. So 1956 is when City Hall West and where the current council chambers are. When that building opened, and that's where the police department was for a little while, where the current police station and Station 51 for fire are located. That opened in 1970. They expanded it in 1974 because they ran out of room, and then it hasn't expanded since, and we're still in it. So I can tell you, I started with the city of Visalia at the police department in 1993. And on one of my first days, they give you a tour of the department. They said, "Don't get too used to it. We're going to get a new one in 5 years." And that was 31 years ago. So it's been in the works for a while. I think at least in the 90s is when they really, I think, started tucking away money to get serious about it. And then there's a number of events that happened in the early 2000s that were really kind of picked up speed. Obviously,
A lot of things changed because they didn't have a vision of this in the 1970s. What did it start as? I heard that original was just to replace the city hall. Do a new one of those.
You want to talk about that one?
Sure. So, yeah, they wanted to replace the city hall. although the East Downtown, I think, has always been kind of in the eye of the city for a long time, although it would probably be in the late 90s when that really kind of became the focus.
Do you remember when they bought that land?
When they bought the land?
Yeah.
I don't. It was, that land that where this is all going was originally under redevelopment land.
Yeah.
And so then the city had that for redevelopment of the East Downtown, and that was throughout the 90s. And then redevelopment went away sometime in the 2000s. I can't remember exactly when.
We're not going to hold you at any specific dates, Chief, but get in a sort of like a temporal time frame for the development of this helps.
I can tell you in 2005. So 2004 is when Measure T passed, and part of 2004's Measure T plan was some of that funding would be used to build a new police headquarters and the substations that you see now on the north and south side of town, as well as the headquarters. And they started. I know there were conversations then that it would happen in the East Downtown. And then in 2005, there was actually a group of citizens, and the council put together a task force. They called it the East Downtown Visalia Plan. It was titled a strategic plan for 2025, ironically, because in 2025 we'll break ground on this. But that plan really kind of focused then on the Civic Center eventually happening in the East Downtown, in the area where we're looking now. And that development, and there were other studies afterwards, and like I said, it just continued to kind of snowball and pick up speed. So they've been focused on this area for a solid 20 years, and really kind of working towards having the funding to have it in place, as the vice mayor said, to be able to pay for it.
I remember that task force, but they already had money set away even before the task force was formed.
Yeah.
They had the money that they had started collecting in the, was it 70s, 80s, or 90s? I don't know, but it was somewhere in there, right?
Right. And so the other thing is kind of the most recent look at this project. The mayor was really big on making sure that this wasn't just something that we built and we'd already be, filled the capacity right away. And so he asked that a full needs assessment be done and look at what we're going to be needing for the next 20 plus years. Because as we know, we've been in our current city council chambers for, 60 plus years? I mean, I think it opened in the 50s or 60s. And so we know we're going to be in the 70s. We've been there for a long time, and we know we're going to use this facility for a long time. So we wanted to make sure that it was big enough for all the future needs. And so a lot of the buildings, we redid the assessments to make sure that they were big enough, not just for what we need now, but for many, many decades in the future.
Let's set aside the money for now. Let's talk about that later, because obviously it sort of changed. Well, you mentioned it changed a couple of times even since you've been on the council, right?
Almost doubled, yeah.
And but so let's hold off on that and talk more about what the concept was for use and how it started out as a center and what it was intended to do. Provide, I should say.
So there's going to be multiple buildings there and 3 different phases. So the first phase will have a new city hall, or a new city council chambers, excuse me. And so, because right now, I can't tell you how many city council meetings that we have where once you get all the department heads in there, that we're pretty much already full. So, this room here is probably double the size of our council chamber. So that's going to be one of the first phases. And then we're going to be moving into having the additional police stations for all of our first responders. So right now, we have the VEC out there, and we're going to be building the police station and then the evidence room also. And even the evidence room, I think Chief recently did a new assessment and said, yeah, we're going to need a bigger evidence room than what we originally planned.
What's an evidence room?
I'll let the main guy explain what all that is.
So as you can imagine, a lot of what we do in police work, is making cases. We have a lot of property and evidence. So, our officers are out every day collecting evidence on crimes that they investigate, and depending on what type of crime it is, determines on how long we have to keep that evidence. some cases, some evidence we have to hold on forever. We can't ever let it go. Homicide cases, capital penalty type cases, officer involved shooting cases, that's evidence that we keep forever. We never let it go. And then you have this constant rotation of other items of evidence, whether it's burglaries or sex crimes or violent crimes or different property crimes. So we have a lot of evidence. I should have brought the exact count, but I can tell you it's in the tens of thousands of pieces of evidence. But then even aside from evidence, we have property. And so we're always, we're always getting calls for either found property or property that's been abandoned that we have to pick up and keep until it's either recovered, or maybe it's property that we take from someone we arrested that we have to store for a period of time. So property and evidence is a pretty big and very important function of what a law enforcement agency does. It's, as you can imagine, it's the integrity of that is incredibly important because it is what the criminal justice system relies on. So good storage, good security is all very important. And we have just simply outgrown the space that we're in. We're using closets in the current facility that have been transformed into evidence places. We're also leasing some offsite property to meet those needs. So this will help us consolidate all of that into one location that has better security, better integrity for the storage and maintenance of that evidence over the period of time. And as I mentioned, as laws change, there's impacts to that on law enforcement. So a lot of criminal justice reform and those things that happen, they either have greater requirements for us to keep property or to keep evidence and maintain it over a period of time, and that has impacts on our ability to store it. So this is a facility that will help us meet those needs for today and hopefully well into the future. And different types of evidence. You have firearms, you have drugs, all require their own types of storage requirements. A lot more electronic evidence now, which requires a different type of storage. It has to be somewhere you can't leave it outside in a C train and store it because the heat will destroy it, and then you've lost that evidence from property. So it has to be maintained in an appropriate location. So that's what we do with property and evidence.
I actually have a pretty funny story. Once I was on council, I did a tour of our police station because they were explaining how bad the current conditions were. And when you walk through the halls, it smells like marijuana. And I was like, what in the heck is this? And they said, well, it's the evidence that we have to store. And so the poor employees are sitting there working, having to smell this stuff all day long. So obviously
Sure, they're working.
They're working pretty hard. I was actually really impressed.
It was a joke, Brad. It was a joke.
Well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't like working in that. But obviously, that's going to be that won't be a problem with the new facilities where the employees aren't going to be forced to smell that kind of stuff. And then also, the whole facility will be secured also. So it'll be access only through city employees, primarily police department. So it's the portion of the city hall, civic center, that'll be open to the public. The police, there's obviously codes from the state about keeping the evidence secure. So that'll be all locked down, and there'll be a private parking lot and different things.
So the public safety needs, the needs of the police
I think there were some
department
questions
was the first thing that was identified as a need for this center.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Because has anyone here, raise your hand if you've gone through our current police department right now. I mean, it is tiny.
Current, actually, when's the last time I was there?
I remember as a little boy, I was 8 years old and I was with the Scouts, and we got to tour it. And I remember seeing that they used like the little area for holding drunk people at the time, and there was actually a drunk guy there when I was 8 years old. And I remember that, and now it's pretty much a closet, right? I mean, the old kind of drunk tank. So, yeah, that's one of the biggest priorities that we have is making sure that our police have proper places to conduct business.
I was just curious, how many years has it taken to collect all of this evidence? And secondly, is there a potential that you will be building up because of the increase in evidence that you're going to have over a longer period of time? Because I see this city going for years. And of course, the temperature variation that needs to be within that, just like artwork.
We feel pretty confident that the evidence building that has been planned as part of this new Civic Center is sized to something that will meet our needs for many years. We've come a long way in evidence storage too over the last 40, 50 years. So They have really high density type racking systems. The building is fairly tall, and those racking systems are pretty high, so we'll be able to store a lot of evidence for a long time. But just to give you an example, I think everyone's familiar with the ransacker case from the 70s. I mean, we have evidence from the ransacker cases that were part of the Golden State killer trials. So that gives you an idea, depending on the crime, how far back some of this stuff goes, and storing that appropriately is important. So we're pretty confident the building that we have will meet our needs for that for quite a while.
What's the size of your evidence
I have
facility
to look
now?
at it. I want to say
it's planned
it's
for 15,608 square feet, but
yes.
what is it now?
Well, the entire square footage of our current police headquarters, and this includes Station 51, is about 19,000 square feet.
Okay.
To give you an idea. And then we lease about another 8,000 square feet off-site that is also used for evidence right
Oh,
now.
releasing that.
We have another question back
Go
here.
ahead.
Congratulations on the design. It's beautiful. I have 3 questions. 1, when will it be finished? 2, what's going to happen with Ben Maddox? The grounds and the landscaping around there is beautiful, but the access via Ben Maddox is terrible. You can't walk it, you can't bike it, and it looks in some sections almost third world country. And then the last question is, what's going to happen to the stockyard? Who's going to round up the cattle?
I think at least that one's above Chief Salazar's pay grade.
Yeah, so the stockyard is still owned by that association. I'm sure they're going to continue to do whatever they do over there. We have been in discussions with them to talk about potentially adding like some different events. We weren't going to call it a petting zoo. We were going to call it like an educational, facility for kids, so they can come and see what what they do out there. But I'm sure we're still going to have the occasional escapees of cows that run down Main Street. So when will this get finished? That's a good question. So this will be built in 3 different phases, and the last phase will be built in an unknown date. Obviously, we're looking to get this done as soon as possible because we have the needs now. But I don't think the council has the appetite to get into a bunch of debt. So I think we'll build it when we have the funds available. And what was your last question, Ben Maddox? Yeah, so, obviously, once things get developed from the city, everything will get built up. We're building a park right across the street, which is going to help out tremendously. The Children's Museum really brought that area up. We have like a little area that it's kind of, it's a little triangle that's kind of bifurcated by the railroad. We still don't know what we're going to do with that. We've talked about, kind of showing the different varieties of trees and plants that we farm here in Tulare County. We've talked about a bunch of different things. But as far as the city, obviously we'll build out everything to ADA compliance with current codes. Everything else with the trash. Recently, we have started a new program called the Sweep Team. And the Sweep Team, there's 5 individuals that are each in charge of one section of the city of Visalia. And their full-time job is to drive around and kind of clean up our city. We heard in all the recent surveys that, Visalia just wasn't looking as good as it used to in the past. And so that's when we decided to launch this program. A lot of the people that are currently working there are former homeless individuals who have worked their way up, and now they have full-time employment with the city of Visalia with insurance and everything else. And so when I went out with the Hope Team the other day, we would go on places that were, like one of them was underneath the Mooney Boulevard and the ditch, and they'd constructed like a whole house under there. I mean, they'd framed in a door, and there was a full bed with it was like a Civic mattress or whatever. I mean, it was pretty impressive what they'd put in there. And so obviously that would cause major issues when the water starts coming through. So the Sweep Team came in there within 24 hours and had that place cleaned up. So they've been doing a great job of really cleaning up our city.
You have a question?
I could just add real quick too to that. I mean, we're hoping to break ground by March. So March of 2025, fingers crossed, we'll be breaking ground, and we estimate 18 to 24 months probably construction. So that gives you an idea, hopefully, about when we think we'll occupy it. You know, I'd love it to be a little bit sooner, but we want it done right. But you know, the other part to address a Ben Maddox question, I think, you know, to that question too, though, is really goes to say the vision that the council over the years has had for this piece of property and for this project. You know, like I said, this has been something that councils 40, 50 years ago, I think, started to plan. And then councils that have succeeded them have continued to keep that vision going. And I mean, if we look at the renderings here, I think it's going to be a really fantastic addition to East Downtown. And it'll be exciting to see how it really, I think, kind of changes the landscape of that part of our city, and how this area will develop around a civic center like this, and how we'll see it grow and flourish. So I think, you know, Ben Maddox may look the way it does now. I think it's going to change. I think the whole area is going to change and will reflect what you see here. And that's, you know, a testament to the vision that they've had over the years.
Yeah, hi. My question is, you said that this has been in the works and the plans for many, many years. Was it always envisioned that public safety or the police or evidence rooms or whatever was part of the plan of the new Civic Center design? The reason I ask is I look at it and I do also see that it's becoming very attractive. But somehow, for me, it's I'm thinking civic center. You know, I picture, you know, city governance, space for activities, cultural events, like as was indicated that perhaps there will be different functions, weddings, quinceañeras, and so forth. But to also have on the same grounds, police and evidence rooms or whatever. So for me, it just doesn't kind of quite go together. That's just me. But so I'm asking that question about that plan, and also I wanted to know if you could explain what the use will, what future plans are for the buildings that you'll be vacating, like the current city hall, the current police stations. Couldn't those spaces be turned into larger evidence rooms or things like that? I mean, does it have to be in this nice, big, beautiful, landscape building? I'm just asking, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but thank you.
So the first part of the question is whether or not the public safety has always been a part of the plan. Yes, it has. So in all of the original discussions, the goal, and you can see a rendering up here on this map. So this map that it shows over here shows what we'd say phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 is the VEC, which is our 911 center, which is already in place. Phase 2 is the remainder of the buildings that we're talking about here. So that's the council chambers, the evidence building, and the public safety.
Here, I'll hold it.
I'll come down and let's do that.
Yeah, that'll help.
So I'm doing this to give some context to kind of help with your question. So phase 1 is the VEC, which is in place now. So this is Burke Street here, and this is School Street, and this is Goshen up here. Those are the stockyards. So phase 1 was the 911 center, which was constructed and opened in 2017. Phase 2 is the remainder of these buildings. So this would be the evidence building for the police. This is the public safety facility. This is going to be the new council chambers. And then this is the pavilion that the vice mayor spoke of. So that's phase 2. This green space right here is what is going to be referenced as phase 3. And eventually, after all this is done, and as the vice mayor said, the funding is in place, the city hall will go right here. So the remainder of all the city services, which is currently at the Santa Fe office, we call it kind of affectionately City Hall Admin or City Hall North, and then City Hall East, which is where the convention center is. All of those services then will also be housed here. So this will become an entire campus of all the public, all the City of Visalia services, and we'll be on this one spot.
That's
That was my question. I wasn't hearing anybody say the term city
So probably is the money being saved for this? Right now, we've been saving obviously for a long time to not go into debt or go out to bonds or raise taxes to pay for this phase 2. We didn't do it for the VEC either. The city does have some existing debt. The plan is once that is gone on some other facilities, once that is gone and this is done, then yeah, the goal is then to start saving up to be able to do this. I don't know what the timeline is, and maybe the vice mayor can speak more intelligently about that piece of it. But yeah, the goal is for this entire thing, eventually this green space right here will be the city hall. And then all of the services will be here. This is a park. So to the remainder of your question, all of that will come together. This is an entire kind of civic center complex where we hope that you can have events and those sorts of things. A one-stop shop, if you will, for all the city services. You'll have police, fire, finance, permits, everything that you do at City Hall East, everything at City Hall will happen here at this location.
And then the other half of her question was what happens to those buildings that are vacated?
Great question. So we're vacating those. So interesting enough, if you don't know, the police headquarters and Fire Station 51 are kind of interlocked. So the fireman's residence is right above my office. I hear him every day. They make a lot of noise. So I hear him every day. But so part of the Measure T plan back then was also, and I think part of Measure N as well, was to move Station 51. So Station 51 is going to be reconstructed directly to the west of where we are now at City Hall. So so right now they're on that block between Stevenson and Johnson. They'll be just west of Stevenson, and there's a parking lot there now. Station 51 will move there. The remainder of that complex there, so where Fire Station 51 is now, where Police Headquarters is now, and City Hall West is now, those will all be vacated by the city, and it will go to sell for other development. So we don't really know what's going to happen to that yet, but the city will let go of that piece of property because we'll be moved over here.
To vacate it or to do what? I mean, we're hoping to get these buildings filled immediately within a couple of years.
About 3 years.
Yeah, so we're looking to do this immediately. And so once we do that, we can vacate it, sell it. I mean, obviously we're reaching out to Kuya Health, to different people, see if they'd be potentially interested, because it's a great piece of property, but it's old. And with at the time frame when it was being built, I mean, trying to remodel something that age, it's very difficult. So I would imagine that most likely whoever buys it's probably going to tear it down and build something there. So we're looking to do that. And then any funds, I mean, if you ask the council right now, if it was today's vote, I would guess that they would probably sell that property and use those funds for our future city hall.
And the question about why not just either add on to where we are now, that's come up a number of times. It's really just not that. It's honestly might be even more expensive.
Yeah, it would be.
Those buildings are so old. If we were to add on to one of those buildings now or to remodel, we'd have to get the entire building up to ADA compliance. Like ours doesn't have an elevator. There's all kinds of issues. You'd essentially have to tear them down and start over again. You wouldn't be able to fit all those services on the block where we're at as it is now as well. So between parking and you really can't remodel them. You'd have to tear them down and start all over. As old as those buildings are, and to meet code and to meet the requirements that we have to, it just didn't work. But it was considered.
So, and also for Maria's question, really this will be the evidence room over here in the corner, and so that will not have public access. This will be the police station, and so will only have access to this portion right here. So people won't be going over there, and this will be the main area where people are going to be using. Like this will be beautifully landscaped. It's got an amazing view of the mountains over there. This is where we're expecting people to be holding, parties and weddings and different things. And then also under this pavilion right here, it'll be really nice. So that's where we're really expecting our community to kind of come together, is in, this portion right here. And then this is the other piece of property. Actually, you can just see just a little piece of it. So this, we don't really have any plans for it. And over here, there's, I don't know, I think it's 5 acres or 3 acres, something like that. It's a small piece of property that we're looking to do something, but we're trying to tie it to something within the community so that it can kind of feel like one. Yeah, the creek goes right up to it. And so obviously there are some challenges with having an active railroad line there, but we are trying to figure out a way to tie it together so that the community can use it.
Is there access from Ben Maddox to that property, Fred?
So Ben Maddox is going to be this street over here, which you'd have to, either come down this way or come through here. So
You won't build access from Ben Maddox, right?
I've never seen any plans that show access from Ben Maddox, no.
No.
Now, is this a two-story building? The police edifice is 2 stories, and council chambers is 1? Is that what it is?
The police, the public safety building, it's police and fire, is 2 stories. The evidence building kind of equates to about a 2-story building. I think the council chamber is like a 1.5, maybe close to 2. City Hall, we've already kind of done some planning and macro planning, at least for this building. It's not been designed like to construction doc specs, but that's looking to be probably a 3-story facility.
And when do you expect City Hall to be complete?
That I don't know. Like I said, we know that we're breaking ground. We should be in 3 years from now. We should be operating in here along with the council chambers, and then from there it's that council's decision as to how quickly or what process they determine to use to move forward with the next city hall, whether it's funding from what we sell. That will be up to the council, and that timeline I just don't know yet.
Yeah.
When you are completed with the Phase 3 City Hall, how many employees would be on this campus?
So
And-
the
and
exact
I'm-
amount of
I-
employees, I don't know, but it would be everybody. It would be finance, it would be planning, it would be, all of our departments would be in there.
Do you have underground parking here?
No, so there's going to be, we have additional parking right here, and then obviously all the parking here, so we were told that we have sufficient parking for all the needs.
The parking on the upper part of that, next to the police station, yeah, is that all secure parking back there?
This would be secured
So
parking.
there's no public,
Public parking would be all this main area here, and right here.
so we'll have about what we have down here at the convention center now. Looking at the number of rows of parking that you have there.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, they told us we would have enough parking for everything.
These are existing private businesses that already exist.
It's I believe it's a light industrial zoned area, and so they have like different cells of products, and I think one of them sells like high-end kitchen appliances and different things like that. So.
There is, but I can't tell you what it is right now. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't have it.
We have a question here.
Yeah, on Goshen Avenue on the north end of the complex. Right now, that road's in terrible shape. Is that going to be rebuilt as part of the program?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime that we go in there, we're going to make sure everything's built and that it's done correctly. So yeah, that'll get completely redone. New sidewalks.
Okay. I can fill in one of your questions. The site was purchased right around year 2000, give or take a year or two, by the redevelopment agency. And the purchase included all of that site, the site that the Children's Museum is on, and the site that the administration building is on. And the city got a really good deal from the railroad.
Were you part of that process, Steve?
I was next door.
Okay.
But I remember the redevelopment people really bragging about how good of a deal they got.
I believe, well, we actually had to buy it from the RDA because the RDA just couldn't give it to us. So we actually had to buy those funds, and yeah, it wasn't very much.
How much money have you saved up for City Hall right now?
So as of right now for City Hall, we haven't saved any money. So everything that we've been saving is for what you see right here in this picture. No, so it's the city council chambers, but City Hall is really where everything's going to be. All the other city staff would be in City Hall.
Okay, I think there's confusion between the terms Civic Center and City Hall. But it's apparently not part of these plans yet, and there's no money for it. But apparently this is the designated space for it when they get around to it.
Well, for the first two phases, yeah. So the third phase, we have not saved funds for that.
So yeah, for clarification, this whole complex we're referring to is a Civic Center complex. And as part of that, you have the 911 center, council chambers, the pavilion, public safety, evidence. The city hall building it's already part of the plan. It's just not funded yet, which is why it's not constructed yet.
That's probably what people are looking forward to, is a new city hall.
And it's why it's not in that picture. Everything else that you got funding for is in that rendering.
And so,
not City Hall, because you don't have the money for it yet.
right.
So you are going to sell, you are currently planning on selling the fire station and the police station and
The
City
council
Hall.
chambers, yep.
Okay. So where phase 3 it comes along and you have to build it, and you are going to use the money from the sale of the City Hall site, where's City Hall going to be while, I thought that's police and public safety.
All right, so I'll try and make this as clear as possible because there's a few moving parts to this. So currently, in our 911 center, we call it the VEC, the Visalia Emergency Communication Center. Inside the VEC, our fire administration is currently located inside there. In order to make all this work from vacating the Johnson and Asequia area, the operations that are there right now are Fire Station 51. We've got a plan that's I think getting ready to go out to construction as well, not too far out. The police headquarters and what we call City Hall West. And City Hall West is the council chambers, which will be addressed right here, and then our finance department. So when we make this move, the finance department is going to move with the police department into this building until this building gets constructed. When this building, the City Hall, gets constructed, finance will move into City Hall, fire admin will move into the public safety building, and more than likely some of the city's IT operations, because this is the IT hub it's the brains, will move into this facility there. So there's a few kind of puzzle pieces to make it all work. But that's how you'll vacate. Now the other pieces that will be in City Hall right now are either currently in the City Hall East, which is over by the convention center, or in the Santa Fe building where the admin is. They will be in those facilities, at least for the time being, as far as we can see, until this building is done. So they will still have a home.
And
until
council
this is
chambers will be in this building on the...
right here.
Okay.
Does that make sense? There's a few kind of puzzle
Okay,
pieces.
so you're saying this facility will not be big enough to house finance or anything else?
This building right here is a council chambers.
Just city council chambers.
Just chambers.
This portion right here.
Can you talk about the council chambers for a minute? I see you mentioned it's 200 seats.
Yeah, so we wanted it to be big enough where we can hold other meetings in there, and so it's gonna be a really pretty building. They wanted to kind of focus on keeping the building looking very natural and very kind of like rustic almost looking. Like, it's not going to be a modern looking building. There's going to be a lot of windows that'll be facing the mountains that we'll be able to look out that way. And then it's going to have additional like rooms in the back. So if people are talking with their attorney or they're talking with a group, they can go meet in private rooms in the back. They'll be coming in through the main entrance here in the front, and then they'll come here to the main council chamber. There'll also be like an accordion kind of breakup area where if it's a smaller audience that day, we can kind of break it off. And if we have, full house, we can open it up to over 200 people. And so that was kind of intent, because sometimes we have city council meetings where there's, a dozen people there, and other times we have people that there's a couple hundred people there. So that's what the city hall is, or the city council chamber.
It's like 85,
yeah,
I think, is what it is.
Less than 100.
Yeah, I
So
was
the
going
new
to.
one would be over 200 people.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions about the projected city hall. Number one is how large of a building in terms of square feet and number of stories, and when do you have any rough idea of when that city hall building would be completed?
No, so right now, I mean, we've had some really rough estimates of how big it would need to be. Like the chief said, it would be a 3-story building, and it would house, the majority of our employees in there. But an actual time frame, we don't have that yet. That's phase 3. So it really is going to depend on the council's appetite. If they want to try to go out and either raise debt, increase taxes, or if they just want to continue to save and be able to put away to build that building. I mean, yeah, it's going to be a big 3-story building. I mean, I would estimate it's probably going to be at least 50,000 square feet, if not bigger.
Gentlemen, do you want to go back up to the dais?
We have a question.
Has everybody got a kind of a, is everybody oriented about the space here? What the future represents? No?
Where's this? Where's this in
You
there?
got a couple questions. You got a couple questions.
I had a question. Is the fire department situated there? Are they going to have the fire engines there?
No. So this is just the fire administration. So it's like the chief and the administrative staff. It's not the actual fire stations or firemen.
I was on the original task force in 2005, and the concept was that it was going to be early Californian style. And when I saw the what did you call it? The
Renderings. I
9/11
call them a
building.
rendering, but yeah.
It didn't quite fit, and I was pretty shocked at that. What are you going to give it a little facelift to fit in, or what?
Yeah, so that is one thing that was kind of brought up, is that the VEC is not going to match the rest of the building. And so, obviously the rest of the buildings are planned to be Spanish style or mission style, and so it'll definitely look different. At this time, it's not on my kind of agenda to remodel that building. I know we spent a lot of money. It's a beautiful building. It's not on my personal agenda to remodel it and make it look like the rest. But you never know. Future councils might decide that they want to give it a makeover and tie it in with everything else. So, but yeah, that was definitely something that we thought about. We're like, should we? And one of the big concerns was, do we want to make the whole thing look like the VEC? And we just didn't feel like that really represented Visalia, and we thought this was a better representation of what our community would want.
Oh, one more thing while we're talking about our architectural design, and let me try to put these two images together, okay? This one on the left is, pointed out, Miley. Right, and the tower is right there. Yeah. Okay, everybody understand that? And that shows the so-called breezeway or passage between the council chambers and the other one.
You can see this crosswalk that says stop.
That crosswalk is there.
That
Yeah.
view is from this tree, looking across, seeing the tower.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the tower. It's hard to identify that as a tower.
Well,
from where
it's
you're sitting, but that's
from
what that
looking
tower
above. Question.
I actually have two questions. First, who is the architect? That's the first question. And then the second question is, Visalia is not the first and only town to go through this process where we're growing, we're getting bigger, and other towns have gone through this, and the city of Visalia could take great advantage of the experience that other towns have had. And those are my questions.
So I'll answer the question on the architect. The architect of record is Darden Architects. They are a firm based out of Fresno. and then there were two other firms that actually kind of consulted with them that are on various phases of the project. So, oh gosh, I'm going to forget one of them, and it's going to be terrible.
I was looking right now. I saw it earlier.
One of them was a primary consultant for say the council chambers. The other consultant, that architect firm, is McLaren Wilson Laurie. They are out of Arizona, and they were the consultants on the public safety. They're a public safety specialist, but the actual architect that did the design of the buildings and his architect of record is Darden out of Fresno.
We have a question here.
The second question, yeah, so part of why, I mean, there's a process that we go through when we pick, the design consultants that work on this. The design consultants that we worked on have done numerous, like MWL, for instance. They've worked on numerous public safety projects. Darden has worked on a number of projects. We visited a number of other cities and jurisdictions to see the facilities that they designed and constructed, to see what it is they experienced, what they would have done again, what they wouldn't have done again, what they would have changed. So we went through a number of cities. We went to Salt Lake City. We went to somewhere in Washington, a number of places in California where we looked at their facilities and talked to them about their process to learn, as you mentioned. So.
I would assume that there would have to be something in the design that draws everything together, and so that it looks like a civic center.
Yeah, and so that's really going to be, the pavilion, the tower. That's going to be the focal point that's going to pull everybody in. And once you're in, we want to make sure that that it looked really unique and beautiful. We're planning on having artwork in there, having like beautiful gardens. So yeah, it's absolutely going to pull people in. It should look really impressive.
Hang on.
I'm just assuming that you're going to have solar, but I'm not sure. I just wanted it confirmed.
State law, yeah. All new buildings have to have solar. Absolutely.
And will there be a bell in the tower?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. Chief, you know? I've never...
It is a good question. I've not heard that one yet. So,
Is the solar going to be enough to sustain all of the activities of the city's civic center?
I doubt that. I mean, usually, these are some pretty big buildings, and when they're 2 and 3 stories tall, I don't think the solar panels on top of that would be sufficient. But obviously, there are additional solar panels. Like currently, right now at the VEC, we have over the parking. There's solar panels that are there currently. So I don't know exactly what the offsets are, but I would highly doubt that it would be enough energy to cover the whole thing.
Well, so to her question about a bell, now you've got me thinking. If there's no bell planned, what was the point of a tower?
It's kind of that focal design point of kind of bringing everything together, because it was originally, like I said, it was just going to be a bunch of separate buildings, not tied together in any way, shape, or form. And so we really wanted to make sure that everything came together as one whole project.
Is the concept to evoke the fox?
You know what? It was just council. We were presented with quite a few different options. I mean, there was some brick that looks very similar to this building here, and a lot of people said that felt like Visalia. Other people wanted to go like a more modern look, and we kind of, as a council, quickly shot that down because Fresno, they had like their modern building over there. It's all made out of glass, and at the beginning it looked beautiful, and then 10, 20 years later you're like, maybe not so much. So we wanted something that really felt like Visalia, and at the end, it was unanimous. The council said, Spanish style or mission style is what, Visalia feels like. And so, obviously, it's what we have in some of our buildings currently. The bus transportation center, that looks like that. Our current city admin, it's all Spanish style, and so we just felt that represented our community well. You never know. We might do a fundraiser for a bell or something neat. So, But that's a good idea. You never know. Might throw it in there.
I think they ought to put a siren up there like they used to have in the old fire department. For noontime fire, or 12 o'clock alarm.
You know, a lot of people like. I mean, yeah, a lot of people like the bell that goes off every hour right behind here. So, you know, it's a beautiful sound. It sounds like you're downtown when you hear the bell go off here. So you never know. It's a good idea. Thanks for. What about what? You know what? That might be a possibility too. So, yeah, you guys are giving some good ideas. I like it. Keep them coming.
From that drawing or image on the right there, Brett and Jason, without the city hall, I mean, the city hall is included. Is there anything else that goes onto that property besides that? Is there any other development that will take place? That'd be it.
Not at this time. There's nothing else planned. So, and then obviously until the city hall gets done, we're just going to have it as a grassy area where people can hang out, kids can play. But yeah, at this time, I'm not aware of anything else that we have planned out there.
Are all the development requirements, et cetera, have they taken place, or are they set to take place?
What do you mean?
Infrastructure, what's that? Well, the solar is a requirement, but all the water and sewer and the other things you need to develop a property that size. I mean, that's a pretty $100 million project. It's pretty big. It's an awful lot of stuff.
I don't know if all the infrastructure is already in place or if that's something we're going to add. But I mean, if it is, it's part of the cost that we've already determined.
A lot of it is it went in when the VEC was constructed. You know, and kind of back to some of the power questions. The VEC is a completely different animal because of it's a 911 center, it's an emergency operations center, it's an IT hub. It's built to a way different standard than what these buildings will be built to because it's earthquake proof, it's fireproof, it can't have a power failure. So you know, it's got all kinds of different requirements. So a lot of that infrastructure was put in when the VEC was constructed, and the rest of it, you know, all the phase 2 pieces currently, the design is done. It's all through. It's in construction docs now. Like I mentioned, we're hoping to turn some dirt here in a couple of months.
Okay, let's talk about the money. We're finally getting to that. $100 million, and you've
at least 110, maybe 120.
110. You have it down here on the.
Yeah, we have it down there. It's 85, and that's what it was about a year and a half ago. So
on the other side's 110.
When I first got on council, it was a $70 million project.
Where are those? 85. How does it break down? I thought it was money, but it's square feet. I wear my glasses. How does it break down as far as cost for public safety building, evidence building, council chambers, etc.?
I've never seen that number. I don't know.
You haven't broken it down
Jason would
yet?
Roughly. I mean, I think the public safety building piece is about 35 million, as I want to say, and I don't remember exactly on some of the others how it breaks down. I will say when you look back at there was the East Downtown Strategic Plan from 2005. In 2008, there was the Race Studios did a Civic Center master plan, and in that Civic Center master plan, they said that the city would need about $60 million, and at the time it was City Hall and public safety building. They estimated the public safety building, I think, to be around 44,000 square feet at a cost of $40 million. So that was some pretty good foresight because we're right around those two targets for the public safety building piece.
Yeah, good. And so it's going to be built from, north to south, pretty much.
Phase
along
1
that
and
line,
phase 2,
along Burke Street. Yeah.
It should go to bid mid-December. So we've already done a process where we went out, and it's a pretty significant project because we hope to get all 3 buildings kind of done within that 18 to 24 month time period. So we hope to go to bid. I'll back up. We did go out a few months ago for qualified contractors. So we went through a process where we identified qualified contractors. It should go out to bid hopefully mid-December if everything stays on target. Hope to award a bid by February and then break ground within a month or two after that, we would hope.
Yeah, that's good. That's right along.
We have a question over here.
You're talking about the awarding the construction contracts. Is there any way to give any priority to Visalia contractors or Tulare County contractors? I noticed on the architects, they're all from Fresno's the closest, and then the others are out of state. Is there any way that we can get some money going to our local people?
So as the chief had mentioned, we first had to go through and do a qualified list of contractors who could actually do this job, because I mean the reality of it is such a big project. 99% of contractors wouldn't dare touch it, and so there was I think 2 or 3 firms even in Visalia that are big enough, like Seals Bealey, they would be one. I can't remember who the other, but there was only like 2 or 3 that were even qualified to be able to do a project this big. And we definitely reached out and let them know that, you know, this was out there and if they were interested to sign up. Because at the end of the day, you know, we can't force anyone to take work. We don't know what's already on their plate, but that was a consideration that we had, is, you know, we wanted to make sure that it was a good, you know, firm, and if at all possible to be a local firm. So from the list that I roughly saw, do you remember, Jason? There's like 7. I mean, there was like, if I remember correctly, there was like 7 companies that really even qualified to be able to submit bids. It wasn't a lot of companies, and that's 7 total. And I think 1 or 2 were from Visalia, and so they still have to go through the bid process. And there's obviously laws that we have to follow, where we have to award the contract to the lowest qualified bid. So,
Are there any other changes in the police department, Chief, once this takes place? You're going to keep your 2 substations, and, well, the VEC is going to stay where it is, so nothing changes there.
Yeah,
Anything else?
So the 2 substations will stay in place. So all of our patrol operations will continue to work out of the 2 different substations. This is a significant change for us, though, because aside from the 2 patrol substations, all of our operations, for the first time in my career, will be in police headquarters. We're in a number of different facilities right now, just because we don't have the space. So we're pretty spread out. So the first time in my 31 years, we'll be in one location aside from the 2 patrol substations. So that will be a pretty significant change for us. You know, having a truly functional and I think an appropriate evidence building is significant for us. Inside that evidence building is also our crime lab, which will also finally have a space that is truly what they need to operate and do their job appropriately. Training, we have, you know, I mentioned before, a lot of criminal justice reform, a lot of new laws that apply to police. We have a ton of training requirements and mandates that we're required to meet, that we just don't have the space to do a lot of this. So we have to send a lot of our people either out of house to do that training. So another portion of that evidence building is actually a training, kind of a few training rooms, where we can do a lot more of that training in-house and not have to send people out. We can do that, you know, right here at our own department with our trainers in our facility, and it's got classrooms. So those are some pretty significant changes for us that we're looking forward to having. You know, a building that's truly constructed to be a police station or an evidence facility to help us function more appropriately. And I'm going to kind of back up a little bit too, because I think everyone would love to see the city hall there too, and I would agree with that. I'll tell you, the police are not going to be bad neighbors. And the council over years have really kind of, they've given this a lot of thought, and I've sat through, countless council meetings where they've debated what buildings should come first and what the city's needs are first. And, you know, the reality at this point is they understood that, you know, a lot of the other functions in the city are administrative functions or office functions. And on the public safety side, there were some very special needs that we have just outgrown and need to do something. So, you know, fortunately for the police at least, and for fire, They chose for this path first, but I know that there's a lot of motivation to get that city hall done too as well. But there was a lot of debate, and I think they gave a lot of thought to it. So some of you may be hearing this for the first time, but I know the council has debated this over years and years and years as to what order this should go in and what should be in it. I will clarify this: in the police headquarters, there is not a jail. There is a temporary holding facility, but we're not a jail facility. So if you're having events here, it's not like we're releasing people from the jail out into your wedding reception. We don't have that function inside this building. So
You have a holding pen in your place now?
we do have a holding cell. We have what we call temporary holding cells in the current headquarters. When we say temporary holding cells, is not a jail. We do not keep people overnight. They may be there for a few hours, but they're usually there just to hold them until we can interview them, and then we take them out to the jail. So we don't hold people there, keep them there. We don't keep them long enough to have to feed or sleep them or any of that sort of thing. The new police headquarters will also have a temporary holding facility for the same reason, but it is not a jail.
I know that this is probably going to be worked out as a result of your living there when you move into the new police headquarters. But do you anticipate any security problems in the sense that you're going to have to be in a headquarters which is right near a facility that you hope is going to be open to the public and have a lot of easy access to the public? Anticipate
I don't see any
security issues?
I don't see any. We currently have it set up very similar now. We have our police station right next to our city hall, and it's been that way my entire life, so I've never seen any issues. And honestly, like when we were meeting with some of the school kids a couple of weeks ago, and it was fantastic. They got to come in, they got to bang the mayor's gavel, and then they got to go run over and see the police, and they had a good time. So I don't see any issues whatsoever.
Okay.
I think it's a beautiful plan that's really going to be a place for our community.
Yeah, well, as I said, you're probably going to find out if ones do arise, and you'll find a solution to them.
So this public safety building, as I understand from what you've said tonight, that it's going to be housing both fire and police. Can you give us a sense of the percentage for fire and the percentage for police in that building? And is it common for both to be housed in the same facility? Is that done elsewhere? And what are the pros and cons?
So I would say in this building, the percentage breakdown is probably 80-20, 80% police, 20% fire. Fire just operates different, so this will be fire administration, and then they have, they've got the 6 different fire stations strategically placed throughout the community, so that's where the majority of their resources are. In this building will be the police administration, so myself and my immediate staff, our detectives, our records division, our crime lab, all those functions will be inside this building. What was the second part of your question?
So the crime lab will not be in the evidence building?
No, I'm sorry, they will be in the evidence building, yes.
Oh, okay. And the other part of my question was, how common is it in general, not just in Tulare County, but elsewhere, to house both functions
It's pretty common. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's pretty common. Tulare County Sheriff's headquarters shares their headquarters with Tulare County Fire, for one example, so that's right up the street from us. But you see that in a number of places where police administration and fire are housed together.
I'm wondering who in city government is responsible for managing and coordinating this whole event.
So we are hiring a consultant. That's their number one job is to basically supervise the entire project. And obviously, on top of that, the city manager would be in charge of making sure everything was built correctly. So.
Gentlemen, you've been very forthcoming with to all our questions and explaining what's going to happen there at Burke and Goshen over the next several months. Is there anything else that you want to let us know, or you can let us know that we haven't asked or hasn't come up, or
You guys have asked good questions. So.
whatever? Is that about it?
Right? We have to go through our own process too. We had to. So. Yeah, so with all, I mean, the state of California is requiring that. So you're seeing that every time we're touching a road, we're adding bike lanes. You're going to see bike lanes on Mooney Boulevard, even though as a council we didn't like that idea, but the state's requiring it. So yeah, anytime that we're touching roads, we're adding bike lanes, and that'll be part of it, absolutely.
This one will even have a cattle lane on Goshen there.
That'd be a good idea. Do a little bull riding in the back, you never know.
Bull running, yeah.
Running
bull
of the
riding.
bulls, I like that.
Well, we're going to finish up a little early, unless there are any other questions from anyone. I've certainly answered all of mine. So thank you all very much for being here. Let's give one more question, sure, of course.
Yeah, one more. There's a green area here on the bottom. There's just a green triangle down there. Is that going to be a park? Or is that just open area? Or
That's going to be the inclusive park that we're currently building right now. So
okay, great,
it'll all
thanks.
be tied together real nice. And in the inclusive park, we'll be able to tie into the Imagine You Children's Museum. So it'll be really pretty. And then there's some additional park space also.
You want to do that? Bang the gun? Going, last chance. This is it. Councilmember Brett Taylor, congratulations on your reelection again.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Police Chief Jason Salazar, thank you very much. Thank you. I think they deserve that applause for coming out tonight and explaining all this. These guys probably have talked about this dozens of times already, and I'm sure they probably thought it was kind of a pain in the neck to come out here and do it again for us, but we really appreciate that you have. Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Brett.
Good refresher for us, too, because, yeah, it's been a few months since we talked about it. So.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad we served something. All right, one more thing before you all go. Remember, next month, December 10th, Terry Yeoman will be here to talk about the Butterfield Overland Stage, and there will be cookies. And we'll also have some more information about 210. So I hope you will join us here on December 10th. Thank you and good night.